What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Uncut. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this, my second channel, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with all the Flat Earth Debate Uncut and after show goodness. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere. Now currently we're not joined by anybody in the Hangout because it is just before the live show actually starts and Arwin is streaming on the early bird show, so I'll hopefully get joined by a few people in the next couple of minutes and I'll meet and greet them as they join. I'm hoping that Adam Meakin will be amongst the people that join us on this particular live stream so we can go through some of the aspects of the curve calculator. Now, while it peeves me greatly to go into the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator 3 steps in and look at the perspective hijacking element of it when it is in fact a begging the question fallacy. However, that particular fallacy does have its intricacies that people like Adam Meakin and Anthony and indeed Dell, who I will give a shout out to, as much as Sleeping Warriors just released a video saying shout out retracted, it was actually Gav that gave us this information. Well, it wasn't, as far as I'm concerned. It was Dell. So Dell came on and gave us quite a useful, well, very useful piece of information about this particular aspect that we're discussing currently. And that particular aspect, which as I say I hope Adam Meakin will also discuss with us when he joins later, is the aspect of the angle that is manipulated after the fact. So the curve calculator essentially will adjust the angle that you view a target, whatever it may be, individually. So when, for instance, Miles Davis has put up his picture of his mountains and said, this mountain's in this position, this mountain's in that position, he's gone and got the numbers from the curve calculator, and he's either stupid and doesn't realise, or deliberately lying about the fact that the curve calculator does not fix its angle to whatever you're looking at. It adjusts it based on the distance to the target. So you're continually angling your camera down. Now, number one, that's a physical impossibility. Once you open the shutter of a camera, that's it. You've fixed your angle. Now, the reason Dell's information was particularly useful is because, well, I'll summarise what Dell's actually said. So he said that you can find the centre of frame. You just draw a diagonal line across the whole image that you've got, whatever you've taken a snapshot of, and that will give you the direction that the camera points. So the centre of that picture is the direction the camera's pointing, and in the last show he pointed this out using various different pictures, one of which was obviously pointing at the moon, and the moon's in the centre of frame with the horizon below it. So he basically explained horizon above midpoint, you're obviously looking down, horizon below midpoint, you're obviously looking up. So he's gone through that, which gives us a good, useful reference for which direction any given camera is pointing, especially when someone wants to claim that they're pointing in a specific direction at a specific angle, in this case, completely parallel with a bridge. So in that instance, you've immediately done the maths wrong if you're Miles Davis and you've referred to the calculator, because the calculator does not fix its angle. It changes it in favour of the globe and engineers in curvature by continually tilting the camera down, an impossibility with a still image. It's fixing the angle at the moment you take the picture, and a picture like the one on screen now, I would say that the camera is absolutely perfectly level because the horizon's right in the centre of the frame, so that's where the camera is pointing. It's not giving you line of sight, because line of sight is based on what you're looking at, so a boat in the lower part of the picture, you have line of sight with this. However, the camera is still pointing in this direction. That's what the camera's pointing at. So ultimately speaking, we can determine the angle of the camera based on what's in the centre of the frame. And it's led us to, or we were looking at it parallel, or looking, probably bad terminology to use, we were looking at it at the same time, the fact that the mathematics for the calculation is incorrect. It's continually pushing the angle of the camera down for a further target that's more in the distance. Well, ultimately speaking, the mathematics at the very least, if you're going to beg the question, prove nothing because you've already got a radius and assume your outcome, then start to hijack perspective, you should at least appreciate that the mathematics is a fixed angle and doesn't do what the calculator suggests for a given target, because it's only based on a target by target basis and doesn't assume your angle, it dictates your angle. It tells you what your angle is, because of course it knows what your camera's pointing at, before you even get near the maths, because it tells you and will only allow you to point the camera down. That's how the calculator works. But that's obviously misrepresenting the mathematics. So if you're going to use a fixed angle, which every picture ever taken is, then you must accept that that fixed angle is going to change the mathematics of a particular target on your begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator. And despite the fact that nobody's joined, I am actually going to have to start this show. Click, click, get everything in a row. Hope there's nothing wrong with the link. I'd normally be joined by somebody by now. Let's just see if anybody's... No, nobody's messaged me. Get this show on the road.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they're live, and there's also a PayPal link and crypto link in the info box below this video. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Iron Rail Media, who I assume is Adam, Chocolate Sane, and Arwin. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good morning, good morning. Mr.
Good morning,
Adam,
good morning.
Nathan.
Hey, Chocolate. Hey, Chocolate, that icon's wicked, bro.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you don't get to see it if it was being broadcast and you're on a hangout that was put out to the public. They don't get to see the animated icons, whereas because I share my screen on the show, you can actually put up an animated icon like yours or Anthony's and see it doing its thing, which is pretty cool. Presumably an anime character. I don't know much about anime, but I know what anime looks like.
You know Goku, right?
You are Arwin.
Oh dear. That character that you're actually seeing, they're called Saiyans, but he is Goku. What you're seeing is Goku. That's his
Goku,
name.
hey?
The super ultra alien powerful hero.
Is that what you see
That's
yourself as, Chocolate? An ultra powerful alien hero?
Say that again. I'm sorry. Somebody was talking to me at work.
Is it supposed to be like a representation of you, your icon?
I guess, yeah. That's my it's one of my favorite cartoon characters.
Fair enough.
He
So-
is pretty cool.
Before the show started, I summarised on my own, because no one was here, some of the points that I'm hoping to go through with Adam on this particular show. I'll hopefully be able to do it a bit more concise now. I've done it once on the pre-show bit that will go out after these live shows end on my second channel, but hopefully I can concisely say what I'm about to say. So, a couple of things. Dell does deserve a shout out. So Anthony made a video saying shout out retracted. It was Gav that told you. I don't care who tells who what. It's about the person that exposes it to the most number of influential people at the right time, and that was Dell. So Dell came on and basically explained that if you draw a diagonal line, so for the audience only, through any picture, you can identify the centre of frame, obviously, but that also gives you the direction the camera is pointing, which is useful because it can tell you the angle that the camera is pointing. Is it pointing up into the sky, down into the road in this instance? So it can tell you where the camera is pointing, not line of sight. That's something very different. We have line of sight to this car. It doesn't mean the camera's pointing at that car. It's just in the frame. and you have line of sight with it. So they're very different things, but it can tell you the direction the camera's pointing. Now that's directly linked or useful to the current mathematics that Adam's been going through in relation to Miles Davis's observation. And the reason is because with any picture, it doesn't matter, not necessarily exclusively Miles Davis's picture, but any given picture will have a fixed angle. As soon as you open and close that shutter, it fixes whatever angle you were at when you took that picture, and it does not change. And Miles is even asserting what angle he's at, according to him. So he's fixed his angle. Now, either through stupidity, or i.e. ignorance, or deception, i.e. the guy's intentionally lying, he, like I say, either hasn't appreciated the fact that when you put those numbers on Miles Davis, when you put the numbers for each mountain, the calculator forced the angle further down for each given target. So it's not just that the calculator's got the wrong angle, it dictates what the angle will be based on its distance. So if you're saying you've got a fixed angle, and you have, this is something that's, you know, useful that you've exposed, you've kind of shot yourself in the foot, Miles Davis, I'm addressing here, because you've highlighted the fact that the calculator's continually angling down for any given target that's further into the distance. That being the case, it is absolutely a bastardization of reality, because no picture can do that. You can't continue to angle a camera down after you've taken a picture, and that's how they're analysing it. So I believe, hopefully I'm right in my assumption here, that Adam has actually done some of the running the numbers, as opposed to just putting it into a reasonably concise description of how the calculator's hijacking perspective and engineering in curve by essentially tilting your camera down after you've taken a picture. So are you there, Adam?
Yeah. I think that's... I was rambling with the guys last night, and I said, oh, I can't wait for Nathan to be there, because he'll put my ramblings into a sensible, coherent form. So thanks. That's perfectly put. Yeah, I mean, there's two parts to it, isn't there? There's the... And it was born out of this Walter Bislin formula that you posed the question. So we started to look at that. And again, it's just confirmed again, as you say, how they are manipulating the maths to give them numbers that are favourable for them to use. But like I say, the sad thing is, you've explained by the angle in which they calculate, that then does not represent reality. And it makes sense that they're doing it, because it's, again, it's trying to hide the combination of perspective and cumulative curvature. And once again, they're fudging the figures to try and mitigate and reduce. So we've done that, haven't we? We've looked at that to understand it. And I'll go through that in a little bit, because understanding how they calculate the hidden is key for what I had to do afterwards, which is to then redraw all the maths by hand based on the statement that Miles Davis gives us with regards to his claim of the transit.
Sorry, just while you're umming and ahhing about whatever you're going to bring up, the transit is essentially the level of the camera. So if you were to assert that you had a level transit, it would mean that you could rotate the camera through 360 degrees and return at the same exact point without the horizon bobbing up and down as you did so. So that would be a level transit. And if it's an unlevel transit, you would give it in an angle that you're pointing the camera at. And in this case, I think he's asserting that he's level with something at the exact same height. That being the case, it would be 0.419, I don't know the exact number, but about 0.4 degrees angled down. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. Let me screen share, and I'll... Does the picture come up, Nathan?
Yeah, you're on. You've got your notes on screen.
Yeah. Cool. So if you can see that, you'll have to excuse, it's all hand done, because this is
who cares?
thinking.
Doesn't matter.
So yeah, so that first bit, look, is really to take the picture, and from the picture and the statements that Miles has done, is define the angle at which the camera is pointing. So I've done all that, and like I say, it comes out at 0.41. And we can work down a little bit. There's something, ignore this bit, this was other work. But the principles here, look, you can see the angle you're looking and you can see the overshoot. And that will then give you the hidden. What I've done at the bottom here is, given that we've fixed the angle that we're tilting down, that's now fixed. What we need to do is then place these peaks on the ball, and then from that now fixed angle, calculate the relative hidden. What the ballers do is keep moving this angle, so they'll tilt it down and down and down, further and further to the bottom of the peak, which obviously reduces the amount that's hidden. But as we've made the statement, as Miles has made that statement, that picture is fixed, so that on a ball it gives the equivalent of a level transit. Now, the equivalent of a level transit is by pointing it down 0.41 degrees. But that, as we said, defines the angle. I'll just give you those other figures, Nathan, if you give me a second. So when they've done their maths from this, as we said, the picture uses a downward angle of 0.4 degrees. But then when they go to do the maths on the different peaks using the heights and distances, the calculator and the numbers they then use changes, as Nathan said, the downward angle of the camera. So when you're looking at Cairnock Hill, they've actually got a downward angle of 0.8. Earl's Seat is 0.914, and Meikle Bin is 0.82. And the net result of that is it reduces the hidden. So what I've done is a little bit of the maths here. So this is just to, explain it, just to make sure I'm right. And then I've managed to be able to draw a triangle here. Now I've got all the angles, but I haven't got all the lengths. I've got this length here, which is the radius plus the observer height. And this is what I'm trying to find out, which is the radius plus the hidden and where it intersects this line. So I've used the law of sines to calculate it. Whereas previously, when we did that first bit of maths on these peaks, I gave the disclaimer that I was being generous and I just used the hidden height straight out of the metabunk. And what you see here is that metabunk hidden height of 109.6, and that's derived from the downward angle of 0.801. But as we know, and as Miles has categorically stated, that angle in that photograph is level with the top of the bridge, which makes it 0.4. So when you recalculate at that, the actual hidden height becomes 187.3 meters. I've done it for two of the other peaks. So this is for Earl's Seat, whereas the data they're using was 195 meters. It's actually 285 meters. And for Meikle Bin, it was 126, but actually recalculates at 208. So that kind of exemplifies the level of skewing that they're putting into it. And I'll just bring up the slightly amended spreadsheet. So like I said, this was the hiddens here, and this is the new. And as you can see, it does skew the proportionality a little bit more because it's starting to now be reflective, truly reflective of the cumulative effect of curvature. But most significantly, and I'm desperate to catch up with Ranty to get some of his, because his little ruler approximations would be quite useful for this if we put some dots on. But you can see that the main point is the actual reduction in actual angular size is quite significant. So outside of where we did down here, the ranking ordering, which is still questionable, what you're seeing here is actually a massive replacement of where the peaks would be represented in that picture. And that's what I think, if we could get Ranty to do a bit of work on that, that would visually show that. But I mean, if you look at the numbers, you can get the gist of what I'm saying. Look, 0.1s. Here it's a little higher where they've managed to bring it up a little bit. And then here's the actual reality, which matches the picture. Yeah, there you go, Nathan. I think that kind of sums it up.
Yeah, so just to summarise, if you're ever presented with the calculator, you must ask the question, why would it be the case that the calculator's dictating what angle I'm pointing my camera at? And subsequently, why is it changing it on an item-by-item basis when that's a physical impossibility? Once you've taken a picture, you can't change the angle, but the calculator will, whether you like it or not, change the angle to best suit what misrepresents the world you live in, exclude perspective, and give you a curve where none exists. Because as you're apparently moving your camera further down for a picture that's already taken, you're engineering in a better wiggle room for a sphere that doesn't exist.
Yep.
So this is the view they give you. This mountain on the left is the same... Oh, it's gone. Is the same size as the mountain that was on the right. Well, in reality, when something gets further away, it decreases in size, angular size, but the way they represent it is in physical whole numbers of everything. So it doesn't matter if a mountain's right in front of your face or 80 miles away, it's the same feet and inches value. And then further to that, as you look at that item, while they exclude its perspective and only account for it in whole number and whole height, feet and inches, meters, whatever you prefer, they will also adjust your camera after you've taken the picture, further and further down as you look further and further out. Right, you're up again, Adam.
Yeah, no, I was just popping that up just to exemplify the point of what we're talking about. So I just put the picture up there, and that's it. It's just a complete and utter. Maths is only of any use if it represents the reality it's trying to describe. And I think what we've demonstrated here is that, unfortunately, it's quite apparent that the mathematics that's being used is not descriptive of the reality in which we're trying to analyze. Exemplified by the simple fact that the angle is fixed, and unfortunately, in the maths they use, they are changing that angle. And the net reason they're doing that is it reduces the amount of hidden height to down to the absolute minimum it would be if the transit is level with the top of their hump.
Would you agree that as a criticism of the calculator, to criticise the fact that it's changing the angle for each target essentially entirely invalidates the calculator? Would you agree?
Yeah, it totally invalidates the use of those numbers in those statements, because they're completely different numbers relating to a completely different picture that doesn't exist.
Okay, so in conclusion, in order to beg the question, assume a sphere and prove nothing, they hijack perspective by use of whole numbers and adjust the angle of a photograph that is physically impossible. It defies reality to change the angle of a picture after it's been taken, but that is precisely what the maths does, gets you to look further and further down for a picture that's already been taken. And that is where they engineer in the curve that does not exist. This is just a joke. By pointing out where and why they change the angle as they look further out, it demonstrates that the calculator cannot represent reality. It cannot, because it is an impossibility to change the angle of a picture after it's been taken. That's an impossibility. So this does, in conclusion, absolutely invalidate the calculator, even if you choose to beg the question, assume your outcome, prove nothing, and then start to hijack perspective to say that it proves you're on a sphere. Total logical fallacy, but nonetheless just yet another massive chunk taken out of this absolute proof of nothing calculator that people think proves they're on a sphere. Thank you very much, Adam. Absolutely superb work.
Pleasure.
Cool. So, no signs of curvature then.
Yeah, I think I'd go with a no there, Nathan.
Excellent, excellent. So, Sorry, you two. You've been sort of kept in the dark while Adam and I did that. Once again, thank you to Adam. How did the early bird show go, Arwin? Went really well. Loads of good, great guests. Lots of viewers. That's nice to know, Arwin. I'm pleased the show's going well for you. Oh, that's alright. Thank you for asking. That's okay. Do you want to give your channel name? Yeah, it's Arwin. Go and watch my stuff. Will do, Arwin. Will do. What about you, Chocolate? You okay?
Yes, sir. Matt work. Just listening to you guys. That was an awesome presentation, Adam. Great work, man.
Thanks, sir.
I'm gonna have to rewatch it again because I could have really watched too much of it because I'm still hands are busy. But yeah, man. Cool.
I've got to be honest, it outrages me so much so that I took a chunk of yesterday's debate and republished it. The bit where Alan sniggers as he says, "Will they remain the same size, Nathan?" In other words, basically points our point back out to us like it's some sort of objection whilst laughing. And to the globeheads that are being defeated in this particular argument, like Alan, it's just a joke. Oh, so what? So what? The calculator lies about your reality. So what? They've lied about living on a sphere when we clearly live on a flat plane. So what? Let's just have a laugh about how they've lied to us. And that to me is an absolute and utter outrage. Do you guys agree?
I can only link it to my profession, mate. And, you know, this is... If when you're doing medicines testing and you do your data analysis and stuff, if you were to do such what is so apparently fraudulent when you look at it, because if you ask the maths to explain to you what you're doing, as we've described there, you can see that it is not representative reality, and that's fraud. If you're using the maths to bamboozle people to pretend that it's doing something, that's fraudulent to me. It's certainly not honest, and at worst it could be a genuine mistake which should be admitted when pointed out. But yeah, it is outrageous because it is, if somebody like me can sit back and analyze it, then the person that wrote it knew what they were doing.
Yeah, they would have known that you can't keep adjusting your camera down when taking a photograph, and that's what they do in the analysis of the photograph. And, you know, Rumpus has disclosed this a couple of times. It's not performing viewing functionality. In other words, it doesn't represent reality. But they absolutely present it up against photographs to deceive the idiots that don't understand this. Now, that's a bit harsh, because to say that people are idiots for not understanding it, they're not. They're brainwashed. They're brainwashed into begging the question. So it seems reasonable to be 2 steps into the calculator, not appreciating that it's already got a radius value, it already knows you're on a sphere, it's making the assumption. Well, for most people, they're brainwashed into, well, that's all right, we are on a sphere, right? So it's okay to assume we're on a sphere. We are. Well, no, it's not. Especially when it's being used as proof of a sphere. That's called begging the question. But that, notwithstanding the fact that you're begging the question, the calculator itself is literally manipulating the numbers and saying that you're looking further and further down when you've already taken the picture. You're definitely not doing anything. This picture's not changing its angle because I'm looking at something further away. That's ludicrous. And it's the undoing of the calculator. If someone ever presents it again and says, well, look, this mountain should be this much hidden or this much visible, I'll say, well, why have you adjusted the angle that we've viewed this particular mountain at? Well, because the calculator dictates what angle, so it can represent a curve where there isn't one. There is no curve. We're never looking at curve. We're not analysing curve or talking about curve right now. We're talking about obstruction at the horizon. And things do get smaller until they disappear with perspective. But that's not accounted for. What they do, in terms of the angle, is get you to look further down to make it seem curved when it isn't. And seem curved, meaning there's an obstruction at the horizon. Nothing's ever curving. We never see any actual curve. But we argue all day about what's obstructed or how much of something is visible in comparison to something else, while they simultaneously change the angle you're viewing at it so they can mathematically represent it with a curve that's not there. I mean, this is an outrage, and you know, that little laugh from Alan, it did piss me off, royally. Because basically he's saying, oh yeah, well, I understand your argument, I understand your position. You're saying it doesn't change when you represent it with whole numbers. I can put a 12-foot wall on one side of a page, and it will be exactly the same size and 12 foot on the other side of the page if it's in an orthographic representation. But as soon as you put it into a perspective representation, it doesn't matter how many feet and inches it is. As soon as it goes further into the distance, it gets smaller.
It's I said the only purpose for that curve calculator is to extract the downward angle, and that's giving that you accept the assumption of the perfectly level transit that Miles claims. You can take from that angle, from the calculator, that angle, but after that, like I said, what you've then got to do is what I've done, which is to actually set the picture, the maths up to represent the picture. And if you do that, you then can't use the calculator. You have to, like say, the simplest way I found was using the law of sines, and just to express what that radius plus the hidden height would be, and then subtract the imaginary radius r off, to give you the theoretical of how it would be. And like I say, when you do that, you can see why it's necessary for them to have to try and fudge the figures, because the impact is twofold. Because in the Walter Bislin one, they've started to put angular size in there, and that was what was really confusing. And it is this in his, as far as I can see, because he does hide the second peak mathematics, but it does appear to be doing the same thing, even though it's not clearly explained. But looking at it, that appears to be doing the same thing as a person putting multiple inputs into the states of the curve calculator. Then it applies perspective, but the perspective it's applying it to is an already raised up, technically raised up globe. So it's not a globe anymore, because it's been subjected to perversions that stop the mathematical representation of where it's putting the peaks. It's no longer on a globe. It's on this weirdly measured at different distances kind of shape. So it would completely corrupt the reality of the shape mathematically in what they do. And that's what it does. It kind of stretches it and brings it all up at different levels.
Or to put it another way, I'm hoping this will be more concise, although it is quite a convoluted explanation. It can't be helped, unfortunately. You know, there's no way of dumbing this down. For each target that you're looking at in Walter Bislin's calculator, it does the same thing. So it's adjusting the angle for each individual target. So it's giving you this distorted view of a globe to give you the hidden value, and then calculate out what the leftover amount would be in an angular size. Ultimately speaking, the calculation that's done is still absolutely an orthographic view and absolutely excluding perspective, but the net result of that is then taken proportionately. So it removes the hidden, takes the remaining amount that's apparently visible according to a begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking curve calculator, and then gives you that as an angular size. Well, it's meaningless. The calculations themselves are the same. You owe me £1, by the way, Adam, as the Metabank calculation. So can I just get one more thing from you, Adam? Sorry to cut you off. So when you got to the bit where you pointed out that you had to minus off the radius, you kind of half chuckled. I know why you half chuckled. You sort of apologetically chuckled, shall we say? Why would you do that?
I'm begging a question, Nathan. I'm begging so much. There's so much begging in this and assumptions that it isn't. It's really a polite response and giving the baller so much, because none of it's required. It's absolute nonsense.
Right.
Start to finish.
Yeah, exactly. So
given that you humour the nonsense and explore it, in doing so, what you do is unveil more of the deceit.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is something that I'm going to have to start being a bit more sympathetic towards the people like yourself who do it, because often I get that reaction. I'll get someone like you or Anthony going, look, I'm really sorry, Nathan. I am going to have to beg the question in order to explain why it's complete nonsense. And I'll sigh and go, well, just point out that you're begging the question, and that's the end of the argument. You know, chop the head off immediately. Don't slowly torture them. Just chop the head off, and then it's over. It's a begging the question fallacy. But as Adam reasonably points out, if you want to show just how deceptive they are, you've got to get into begging the question, as much as it frustrates me. And when someone like Adam does that, and he gets to the point where he says, well, I'm assuming R here, and now here's where it goes wrong, at that point I'll normally get some sort of apology, or look, I'm really sorry, I know I'm begging the question, I know I'm doing it for them, etc, 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 because that's why the name of the calculator is what it is, begging the question proof of nothing. If you're going to assume you've got a radius and stick it right there in the calculator, just go to that bit and go, there you go, that's the bit I'm looking for, radius. I haven't put a value in yet. Nothing's been done with the calculator. I've just gone to the page with the calculator, and there it is, radius. Well, that's the bit I'm trying to prove, right? So you don't need to do anything with the calculator. It's not going to prove anything. It's already got what you're looking for, that radius value. So where did it get that from? That's why I asked them to prove R. Not just stick it in a calculator and assume it. That's outrageous. No way. Prove R. Don't tell me that some guy 2,000 years ago looked at a shadow and a light in the sky, assumed we're on a sphere, and then started measuring sticks and shadows, and the geodetic surveyors have double checked and it seems to match. That's consensus opinion based on another presupposition. The light in the sky means we're on a bloody sphere. Let's start measuring with that assumption in mind. Let's assume we are on a sphere and start measuring more lights in the sky based on my presupposition. And that's what apparently, according to the history books, we've had for 2,000 years. Well, 2,000 years as far as I'm concerned, especially if you've got people out there asserting the whole body of science proves this crap, should have at least come up with some scientific evidence to back it, and there's none. It's just an assumption. So just to get this diatribe concisely rounded out, the begging the question part of my title for that calculator is the most important bit. You're automatically assuming you're on a sphere when you use it. It's already got a radius value. That's the bit you're trying to prove. So prove that. Don't just stick it in a calculator. But once you do, for those people who go, well, it's perfectly acceptable to do as my brainwashing tells me to and accept I'm on a sphere without any evidence to start with, and then go from there to prove it, well, you're already on a sphere. But when you do that, the way the calculator has hijacked perspective is to give you everything in whole numbers. To say that it's a 10-foot wall and that won't change if it's on the left-hand side of the page or the right-hand side of the page, with you on the same page looking at it. Even though you can't get outside of your own head and look at the side of your head, that's not a possibility. The picture's always like this. You behind the camera opening the shutter with a perspective view that does absolutely make things in the distance look smaller. An angular size reduction, something that is not and cannot be accounted for. If I say that building in the distance is 200 metres, it's always 200 metres no matter what the distance. Even though obviously if it's 100 miles away, its angular size is tiny. It's suddenly a very small building. Well, they would say no, it's still 200 feet and should be represented that way on a flat plane. Whereas the effects of it getting smaller into the distance, that's Earth curve. Because look, as I angle my camera down, well, hold on, sir. This picture's fixed its angle. Why does your calculator have to angle down further and further for each of these buildings that we're measuring? Oh, well, because that's how I engineer in curvature. Because the Earth's not actually a sphere, it's flat. But if I say perspective's curve, a lot of people will believe it if they've been brainwashed to just assume it's a curve in the first place and then go to a begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator to prove something that's already been assumed in the calculation.
I think you've got to add some more, Nathan. I think you've got to your proof of nothing, perspective hijacking, downward angle, cheating angle. We need something that mentions that actually as well, how it cheats as constantly angle adjusting for favoured view, isn't it?
Downward angled.
That is the crux of it, that they've hidden for me, and that's the really naughty thing, that they've not explained how it works and why you're pulling that number out, so that people, like I say, blindly take it and use that number without understanding really the implication of what that number means. And that is that it's moving the bloody camera every time. If you do that, it's of no value, that calculator, if you want to analyze a picture other than getting you the first angle. If you could possibly define it, which again was another begging the question that you start off with at the very beginning, and that's to try and pretend that Miles has really attained a level transit over 46 kilometers between, so that the center, and this comes back to what Dell was saying, which is the principle of this mathematics is what Dell was saying, is that the center of that camera needs to be level with the top of that bridge. For Miles's claims on perspective and how the picture's set up, A, to be even considered, and B, for me to then beg the question with everything I've then done. So yeah, lots of begging the question in all of this, Nathan.
Yeah, but even allowing them to do so, you've got to point out at the end of the day that if you've got a picture, it's got a fixed angle and the calculation's constantly adjusting that angle. Now, while you might be able to feasibly accept that's the case if you've got one target, but when you start comparing them, oh dear, that's when we start looking at the actual measurements that you've put on screen and claim that they are and how they should compare, and that all goes to hell real quickly when you fix your angle, unlike the calculated measurements you've put on screen, which has got a continually changing angle, in some instances double, from 0.4 to 0.8. Oh, well, that's quite useful if you're trying to prove there's a curve where there isn't one. If you say that you're increasing your angle down on a picture that is physically impossible to do it on, that never happens and never will. That's why the calculator, ultimately speaking, will never ever get used again. I say, well, it's changing the angle the whole time. That's not possible on a picture. You can't change the angle. This picture right now, and every picture ever put on screen ever, has one angle.
Is 0.914, so more than double the angle down.
Outrageous. Just a deception. Just cheating the numbers to create a curve where one doesn't exist, Miles. I mean, I want to ask Miles, is he stupid? Is it stupidity, do you think? Do you think this is down to stupidity? He just didn't realise that the camera was being continually angled down in the mathematics when he's claiming it's fixed. Did he not realise this glaring contradiction in his mathematics that he put up on screen and declared were proof of a globe, when clearly they actually prove a flat plane? And not only prove a flat plane, prove how they've manipulated the angle to give him those numbers.
Must be just a glaring mistake.
So you think it's just ignorance and stupidity?
But you can see, well, I said, with that Earl Seat one, it should have 195 meters hidden. But the reality is when you fix the angle, it comes out 284 meters that's now hidden below the line of sight and totally impossible to see in the picture if you were on the ball.
Yeah, it screws up the actual claimed positions, if you beg the question, assume you're on a sphere and do these mathematics. When you fix the angle, suddenly a whole bunch of it's in completely different positions than it is in the picture.
But it means that all of those peaks in the background would be below. If you then extrapolate that out and do the angular size stuff onto it, so you take it into perspective, where it would place the peaks would mean all of them are below the line of the bridge, and quite significantly. None of them would be like with Michael Bain and that sat above the line of the bridge. They'd all be below it.
Yeah, the link is out, Ruhif. Just refresh the page. Should be there. So, yeah. The calculator's nonsense. It's continually angling down when you can't physically do that in reality.
Right, I'm going to drop for a sec. I need a drink. So.
No worries. Apparently the link's not working. Just double check it.
Back in a sec. I'm just going to get a quick coffee.
Right, my bad. I've put the wrong thing out. Thank you, Ruhif. My bad.
Yeah. We really got him by the balls with this perspective thing. It's so obvious that they just, on purpose, replaced perspective with the curvature, just in that function. And the one that designed it had nefarious, deceptive intentions. You can't do that by accident.
Hey, P.
Hello.
Good to have you. I plugged the pre-show and it's saying I've got a problem with the recording, so if you do happen to tune in after the end of the second show to the... Hi, Daniel. Hi,
Nathan, how are you?
Hello, Donuts. Hi, Donuts. Can you hear us? Hey, it's Ruhif. Good to have you.
It is.
Hey, man.
I probably should turn my video off because my internet's struggling. One sec.
No worries.
There we go.
So what do you make of all this, Ruhif?
I'm on the wrong account, am I?
What do you reckon?
Am I on the wrong account? I think I am.
It's nonsense, Nathan.
It doesn't matter which account
Yeah,
you're on,
it's
don't worry
gibberish.
about it. So the camera's being angled down for each of the targets, Ruhif, when that's an impossibility in reality.
No,
Once you take a picture, the target's fixed in its angle.
No, the curve calculator, all it does is draw a tangent to the circle from the observer height and hits the tangent of the circle. That's all it does.
So yeah,
It
why
doesn't
is
change
a
the angle straight
calculator?
line.
I know what it does. Why is a calculator deciding the angle of the camera?
The angle is the angle to the horizon. That's the only angle it cares about.
Right, it's changing the position of your camera view. Do you want me to bring up the Metabunk calculator and actually show it doing it? Or do you just not realise that it does this? Because it does. Either you're denying that
I'm
it
trying
does
to understand
this,
what you guys are talking about.
it angles the camera depending on what the target is. So if you're looking further out, it angles the camera down.
Show me what you mean.
Do you not know that it angles the camera down, Ruhif?
It draws a line from the observer to the horizon and beyond. That's what it does. It draws a tangent.
You're talking gibberish, Nathan.
Get out, Rumpus.
That's just
Get
wait.
out. Get out.
Agreed.
You're just here to obfuscate. I'm trying to have a
Hey, Rumpus.
conversation with Ruhif. So, yeah, per target, it will give you a new angle depending on what you're targeting.
No. There's only one angle.
Okay, Ruhif, if you say so.
I do say so.
Well, go in peace. Believe that all you like.
I will do.
Oh, if you go.
Adam Meakin. I was at Earth Flattener. Earth Flattener is the reason I
Yeah,
actually
man.
came on. He asked
What's
me.
going on, man?
Yeah, he asked me a few weeks ago to come on.
Hey, physics.
Flatner.
What's up, Chuck?
Chilling.
Can Adam explain what this angle thing's about?
He's gone to get a cup of coffee. Maybe when he comes back.
All right. Okay.
The angle, like, don't you get it? Like every time you're using the side-on view of that globe, you're looking at an object into the distance over the presumed curve. To look at it, you're angling down.
Yes.
The
The
view.
horizon is down. Yes.
That's what we were talking about.
No,
So-
someone's talking about the angle's changing. The angle
Yes.
doesn't
Yeah,
change.
that,
The
no,
angle- the
that's
only
exactly what I just described. You're looking at something
The angle
into
doesn't
the
change.
distance and you curve your head down because
Paul.
it's over that curve. That's changing the angle of the viewer.
No, the way I understood it, Adam's talking about the angle changing halfway through the calculation or some shit like that.
Yes, when you compare two different things, i.e. something in the near foreground versus something in the background, that's correct.
The only angle in the Metabunk calculator is the angle to the horizon.
I don't think that's right.
Well, it is.
Right, so the thing that is giving you your hidden value won't change.
The horizon angle will not change. The horizon angle only changes with a change in viewer height.
Right, we're not talking about the horizon angle, we're talking about the target.
Yeah, the target, that's just a tangent. That's where the tangent joins the target.
What tangent? On your imaginary ball?
We're doing circle geometry, and you have a line or a point outside of the circle, and you draw a tangent to the circle. That angle does not change.
It
Right.
changes depending on what your target is.
No, it doesn't.
I mean, if
I
you
don't
want
Go
to
to the
think
curve
that,
calculator now.
I'm
Go
sending
to
you
the
a
curve
picture.
calculator right now.
Whoa.
Go to the curve calculator right now.
Whoa, you're really loud.
Daniel.
You've suddenly got
You
massively
okay?
loud.
Am I loud? That's Nathan's
Don't
fault.
get triggered.
No, Daniel, your mic just
Go to the curve.
blasted.
That was my mic?
I think it's
Yeah,
Whatever
Casey
that was
Daniel.
crazy.
Lock, whatever that was. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there. I'm just on my phone. I don't think.
Type in any distance you like in the curve calculator. The horizon dip angle does not change.
But the
that only
calculator
changes
talking about the horizon.
The horizon, it's calculating the height of the two objects and the hidden value.
Hidden value, right?
Yeah, but that angle doesn't change.
Oh my god!
If the value is hidden, then how come you can see it and read it?
You don't even understand it.
They must.
So, Adam, are you there? Maybe you can explain it.
Yeah, but I'd put it up. Lot. If you go to it here, lot, and you change the distance, you see here the tilt angle, which is specified down here. Lot. Note that theta is the same angle as the tilt of the target object. So this is what I was looking at.
Sorry, Adam.
This was what was confusing.
Sorry to interrupt, Adam. Adam, sorry to interrupt. Just read that again.
Note that theta is the same angle as the tilt of the target object. So
so the target object, Ruhif.
Yeah. So it's basically the variance.
Hold on, I just want Ruhif to just acknowledge what's just been said, contrary to what he's asserted 3 times about the horizon. What do you mean? You mean, yes, Nathan, I was wrong, and I've asserted it 3 times incorrectly. No. I concede I was wrong, Nathan.
No, what's the question?
I'll just show you here, look, Ruhif.
Ruhif, hold on. Have you got a degree, Ruhif? Because as far as I'm concerned at this point, either you're obfuscating or stupid. Read it again to him, please, Adam. Let's see if he can listen. Listen, Nathan. Ruhif, dumbo. Listen. Don't talk. Dumbo. Listen. I'm going to kick you out if you try and obfuscate this point, you retard. He's going to read it to you again, and you're going to concede. And you are going to concede, or I'm going to kick you out for being a thicko that they somehow gave a degree to. Go ahead, Adam.
Let's speak.
That means shut up! Are you really this stupid? I've given you the instruction 3 times. Listen, don't talk. Go ahead, Adam.
I'll read it again for you. So it says, note that theta is the same angle as the tilt of the target object. And this is just me looking at it, because obviously this warp Bislin one's cool because it does start to put in angular sizes and stuff. So that's why, let's have a look at it and see how it works. So if you look here, look, I've got a distance in 91,000 meters, and it gives you a tilt angle, look, of 0.0819. If I change that now to 110,000 meters, because it's further away, look.
Change it to 100.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ruhif.
Change it.
It changes, contrary to what you just asserted. You're going to piss me off real fast if you don't concede this, Ruhif. You're wrong.
Well, do you want to understand what this angle is?
You are
this is
wrong.
Not your viewing angle.
You're wrong. It changes the angle of view. It's on screen now.
This is not the viewing angle, Nathan. Listen, and I'll tell you what that angle is. Do you want to know what that angle is?
Talking about a viewing angle specifically.
It's the viewing angle.
Yeah. No, it's not the viewing angle.
It's the viewing angle.
It's not.
No, it's not the viewing angle.
So then what is it? Can you explain it to us?
Okay, how many degrees does a circle have?
So don't ask us a question.
How about you put in 60? Put in 60 nautical miles. What is that? 60 nautical miles times 1.852. Put in 111.12 kilometers.
You start by asking a question you don't even... How many degrees does a circle have? And then
360, right? What's the circumference? What's the circumference of a circle?
Sorry, you're asking us questions.
The circumference. Well, I can talk if you want.
Just tell me what you think it is, dude. I'm listening. But...
It is the angle of rotation, right? It's the angle of rotation, not a viewing angle.
The angle of rotation. It's saying that theta is the same angle as the tilt. It's a consequence of the. That's what I was quite interested in. Is the consequence of what he's saying is that the assumption first is that the way the calculator works, eye level is at 90 degrees. What he's saying is the consequence of the way the calculator works. Theta is your angle, which is generated by your arc distance times 0.00899326161. That's the generator of the originator from the arc distance you travel. But what he's saying in this calculator, from what I can see, is that as a consequence of that, that same angle is replicated as a variance down from the perpendicular at the eye level.
No, on the screen right now, you have the dip angle, 0.465. That is the degrees you're looking down. That doesn't
You
change.
don't do that, really, and calculate it on paper like I've done. That dip angle works. It is correct. That's how it works.
That's the
if
point.
You write it out. So that dip angle is correct as it calculates. And you can apply it to the triangles that you draw on the basic Pythagorean version. Well, I say when you extrapolate it out, you have to use law of sines, but that angle is correct and all the numbers match up when I've checked them.
Right. So that you acknowledge the dip angle there is correct.
You would be looking down
one at a time. One at a time, please. Sorry, go ahead, Ruhif.
The dip angle on the screen is correct, right?
For those measurements, yeah, that gives you the hidden. But like I say, what you end up doing is it changes it based on the distance. The viewer height's the same, but if you change
the distance, it does not change the dip angle.
Watch. There's the distance, 110. 95,000 meters. It's gone from 0.9 to 0.8.
No, the dip angle did not change.
It says it there, mate.
The dip angle did not change. The dip angle. See what it says, horizon data? Change the distance. The dip angle does not change.
Tilt of theta is the number that's used in the maths, though.
Yeah, to work out how far away you are, yeah, of course.
That's what we're saying.
There's no change of angle.
That's the number that's used to calculate the hidden. So when you go back and check which numbers they're using to then calculate the hidden, you're using that 0.845, the tilt. And as he states at the bottom, that theta is the same as the tilt. So this angle that you generate from R 1 minus cos theta, okay.
Yeah, draw that if you like.
The angle here. Well, this is the angle that's generated from the.
Just repeat that. Sorry, Ruhif, do you want to just repeat that?
I can draw that. What that means.
No, what you said was you can ignore that if you like. No, Ruhif, it's our point.
What?
You can ignore it, Ruhif, and that's precisely what you're doing. Hello? Hello, brain box with a degree. You are ignoring it, and you've now suggested that we ignore it. So, are we going to get a concession that you're incorrect?
Of course you use it.
When are we... sorry, you're going to start rumpusing me. This is the point that either you be a man, grow a pair of balls, and concede that you're wrong, or you can rumpus like the other twat, globehead, religitard zealots that come on here. So, are you going to concede? You're going to be a man, Ruhif?
I'm not.
How about I share my screen?
Right, time to kick P. Let's see if he's a man, or he's going to get helped by his mates like P.
Hang on, I've got to share my screen. Hold on.
Why?
Oops. Come on.
It's just been explained to you.
All right.
Hey, James. Oh.
So what one numbers?
Has James just kicked out half the panel? Looks like it. There'll be a short intermission. Let's see who's been kicked first. Just Iron Realm Media.
I'm still here, Nathan.
Oh, you are? Oh, okay. My bad. Sorry, I thought we had a sniper.
Oh, it's Mabuza, Paul.
Oh, how you doing? No, it wasn't you. Hey, Zinda.
Hi.
Sorry, there's a bit of confusion when people are joining and dropping. My bad for interrupting. Sorry to interrupt your flow, Ruhif.
All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Go ahead. You're on.
Okay. So if I type in the distance up in I3, which I've done, 111 kilometers, I've calculated a rotation angle here as well. All right. I don't ignore it. I don't know where you got that idea that I ignore a rotation angle. You do need it to calculate the hidden. Awfully quiet.
What did I miss?
I don't know. No one's speaking.
Where's everyone?
We're all here.
I don't know.
I'm here.
Here. Is Adam here?
Yeah, I was listening, mate. I thought.
Oh yeah. All right. I want to talk to you about Miles Davis. What's your issue with his observation?
Well, the first point is achieving the level transit, isn't it? Is the impossibility of that to apply the perspective law that he wants to exactly. So I think that was point one. I think it's reasonable to pretend that you could level that center to pretend that that picture was representative of the way he demonstrated with the Coke cans.
Right, but how much do you think he's off by?
I mean, that's quite a trivium, really. It's an easy point to concede, and in reality, you know, it's obvious you couldn't do that.
So, is it a new calculator?
So the bit we were looking at there really was starting to try and combine all of this with.
Are we on a break now, or what's happening?
Perspective, because it's generated some really good, interesting debate of how these things are constructed. And like I say, I've gone through it. I know we've only got a short bit of the show left, but I've gone through it and tried to be honest in analysing it with the maths, and this is the conclusion. Do you know what I mean? And when I've gone through it and then placed those peaks on with that fixed line of sight, it does seem to have big implications of increasing the hidden heights when you just keep that one angle fixed down at 0.4 degrees, which if you go to the bridge,
which doesn't change,
that's the one it gives you, yeah. And that's the fixed angle, and that's the point we're making. When you then apply that,
we agree that doesn't change, right?
When you apply that 0.4 and then redraw all the triangles, that's what we're saying. It seems to have a monstrous impact on the hiddens.
No, Ruhif's under the impression that the angle doesn't change.
The angle down to the horizon does not change.
No,
it only changes with changing your height.
Ruhif, listen to the words I say. The target.
Yes, target does change with distance, yes.
Right, that's our point, you utter buffoon. So you concede. Finally. Be a man, Ruhif.
I have never
Be a
not.
man. You've just obfuscated our point by making it the horizon and the dip angle, and that's not our point.
I was very clear, Nathan.
No.
I was very clear.
You start to obfuscate and lie and be a slippery little weasel, and you're going to get kicked out real quick. I'm not tolerating this shit anymore, Ruhif. You were wrong.
Jeez, you're an angry man, Nathan.
No, you were wrong, and now you're trying to obfuscate your inability to understand our point. So were you just too stupid and didn't get our point because we weren't talking about the horizon? Didn't you understand that? That's a question.
At the start,
did you understand that that's not what we were talking about, but you came in and started to assert horizon where that wasn't being asserted? So either you intentionally misrepresented our position or you're stupid. Those are the only two choices, because that's not what we were talking about, and now you've conceded our point.
Whatever, Nathan.
Whatever.
Out how the
Which is it?
Works
Were you intentionally misrepresenting our point by changing it to the horizon, or are you just stupid?
False dichotomy, Nathan.
Not false dichotomy, right? Because either you intentionally misrepresented our position because nobody was talking about the horizon, yeah? Or you didn't understand our point, because now you do, don't you, Ruhif? It does change with distance. Precisely our point, as concisely put by you. It does change with distance. Our very point, Ruhif.
Yeah.
Yeah!
And the curve calculator.
Get out!
As well.
You utter wanker! You piece of shit! Get out of my hangout. Yes! So, after Ruhif concedes, 25 minutes after arriving, our point is the same. The angle changes with distance. Well, your photo doesn't. You fix the angle when you take the picture, but according to the calculator, it changes if you're looking at something further, an impossibility in reality. So get out, Ruhif. You are either stupid or intentionally and deliberately misrepresenting our point, the one you conceded. You slimy piece of garbage. I hope you never return, Ruhif. You utter disgrace to humanity. And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost, a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. If you hated Ruhif having his ass handed to him, then smash the dislike button, then smash it again. But if you liked Ruhif having his ass handed to him, then be sure to share the show. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!